So I don't know where I'm going to be living in September. I don't know how much it's going to cost me. Um, I don't know how I'm getting there for sure. All of that sort of thing. And when I was 13 years old, I was homeless. I lived on the streets. I lived on the streets for a year and a half until I found a job as a cocktail waitress. I lived on the streets because I ran away from home because I was going through so much, particularly emotional abuse, emotional violence, and other abuses as well. I started running away when I was 5 or 6 years old, and by 13, I made it stick. Unfortunately. And I had to grow myself up off the streets. By 17, I had a baby. I went through a lot. I was trafficked for labor, you name it. And so to step outside my comfort zone and decide that I'm going to live where I land, I work online. I'm a therapist for narcissistic abuse survivors. And, push through the fear and push through the discomfort of something that's actually quite triggering for me. And when I say push through, I don't mean ignore it. I mean acknowledge it, recognize it, and process it and ask myself the right questions. And for me, the right questions are, what's the worst thing that can happen? And what's the best thing that can happen? Because of all the abuse I went through, I don't have a family. Like, I've got my kids, but I always say my children have me, because I should be their go-to. I'm their go-to, not the other way around. I'm not dependent on my children, right? And I certainly don't want my children to ever be in a position where they have to rescue me. I've been estranged from my entire group of relatives on my mother's side, and that's the group that I was around, grown up by. I wasn't raised by them, because when you raise someone, I think it insinuates that they were doing something good. When I went no contact with my abusers, my family chose them. And so in my family choosing them, my family stood with the abusers and they went no contact with me. Because if I wasn't going to fall in line, which was really what they were pushing, like, you can't not talk to your grandfather. You can't let him not see your daughter. He's a molester. So yes, I can. And because I didn't fall in line, they abandoned me. So here I am out in the world. And while I do have a support system, I have friends that are my family. For anyone who's out there without a DNA kind of family that you grew up with, it, all that stuff, and you know what we see out there, if you know, you know, it's not the same. That doesn't mean you can't live like the best life possible. It doesn't mean that you have to let that stop you. It does mean that, okay, maybe it's a little more stressful, sometimes a little bit more lonely. By the way, I'm traveling solo, so that's been kind of isolating at times, and lonely also because I'm like 6 hours ahead of all my people. But here I am. I'm in Cadiz. I don't even know how many places I've been. I'm going to list it here on the screen. And I'm continuing to add to the list. And I wouldn't trade what I'm doing now for anything. I will deal with the anxiety and the fear, and I'll make things work and I'll make things happen, because when you have goals and you work hard, that's what happens. So this is your sign. If you are holding back on doing something that you feel like could make you happy, or you want to see if it will, or a project you want to do, or whatever it is, if you're not going, you're not growing. If you're not trying, you're not growing. If you live in fear and you don't find a way to just go, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the best thing that can happen? And in the worst thing, can I make it work? And push through it that way, you're going to live a life that makes you really feel good about yourself. And you should. And even if you're not doing that, you should still feel really good about yourself. It's just that what I recognized in taking all these chances that I'm taking is that my self-esteem, which was already pretty good because I did a lot of work, is beyond, in a place where I could have never imagined it being. So to all my survivors out there, to all my people without families, to my people who are connecting to the families that aren't families, I love you with all of my heart and soul, and I want the very best for you. And the reason that I am making this video is to say that while I'm someone special, I'm nothing special. And if I can do it, so can you.